Alright, so in this video I wanted to address a common question I get, which is if I set up an LLC or corporation in one of these anonymous states, right, the privacy protected states, Delaware, Wyoming, Nevada, or perhaps I go offshore, the state or that foreign country might protect my anonymity, but I have to disclose everything to the IRS anyway. So what's the point? And it's a good question, right? And so what we'll see when we go through this slide and discuss some of your options are a lot of the utility with going with one of these jurisdictions isn't really for tax reasons. It's for just overall privacy protection, asset protection, and so that's why you go with one of these states or one of these non-U.S. jurisdictions. So we'll start at the top. We just have one slide in front of us. First things first, right? Every state in the U.S. pretty much makes it very easy to set up a company. Whether you're a U.S. person or a non-U.S. person, you kind of just visit the Secretary of State website, file the documents you need, and boom, you have an LLC or a corporation. Some states process the same day, some take 2 weeks, but at the end of the day, pretty easy to set up a company in the U.S., no matter who you are. Now, some states provide more privacy and asset protection than others, right? The Delaware, obviously one of the most famous ones. If you go with Wyoming, also a good one. Nevada, New Mexico, a few others. These states are great because not only do they have good privacy protection laws in place, but a lot of times the legislation, the statutes, provide more asset protection than going with a different jurisdiction. So if we look at Delaware, why is Delaware great? Well, Delaware doesn't collect any information about the owners, period. When you file the LLC articles of organization or certificate of formation, whatever you want to call it, they don't ask for any information on who owns it, right? They just flat out don't care. And so also this is why Delaware doesn't have a public database where they list information on who the owners are, because again, they don't collect that information. So in contrast, if you look at Florida, for example, Florida collects all this info. Florida might be a tax-free state, that they don't have any state taxes, but when you file documents to set up a company in Florida, you're having to let the state government know who are the LLC owners, the members, who are the managers. They ask for information on where's your registered business address, and all this is in a public database that you can access through somebiz.org. So not ideal, right? If you're looking for a little more privacy, perhaps Florida isn't the way to go. So now let's look at some fact patterns here where you have LLC or corporate formations. Perhaps the state doesn't have the information, but you've got to send this information to the IRS anyway. So if we look at this one, LLC formed by a non-U.S. person. Right, so if you form a Delaware LLC as a non-U.S. person, Delaware, again, isn't collecting any of your info. They just don't care. But in order to stay compliant with federal law, you've got to accomplish a couple of things, and the federal government's going to get your info. So SS4 is the form filed with the IRS to get an EIN. On that form, you have to disclose your name as the responsible party, right? You're the 100% owner. You're the responsible party. So now they got your name right off the bat there. So the IRS knows who you are. They know that you own the company. And then secondly, every year, foreign-owned U.S. disregarded entities got to file a Form 5472. On the Form 5472, you're disclosing your name as the 100% owner, right? Your name, your address, your country of citizenship, the amount of reportable transactions that occur between the LLC and you. The IRS gets all this info. So again, Delaware might not have it. It might not be in a public database for everybody else to get at it, but the IRS is going to know that you own this company, and they're going to know the financial activity going between the entity and you. Now, what about an LLC owned by a U.S. person? Well, it's the same issue with the EIN, right? If you apply for an EIN, you're again disclosing yourself as the responsible party. And then as a U.S. person that owns an LLC, if it's a disregarded LLC, you're reporting all the income and expenses on your personal tax return, right? So again, there's no circumventing the tax code here, right? If you own 100% of an LLC and it's a disregarded entity, the IRS is getting your information and you're paying tax on the earnings, period. So then this begs the question, well, what's the utility of the Anonymous LLC? Well, a couple of reasons, right? So the state database rather, it's still relevant because it protects your information from everybody else, right? So yes, the federal government gets your information, but at least it's not publicly available to everybody that has an internet connection, right? If we go back to Florida, for example, Florida, anybody can go to this website and look up the LLC name and see who owns it, who are the managers, where's the registered address. That's a problem for a lot of people, right? They want a little more privacy. So what state you set the entity up in will certainly matter. If you go with Delaware, Delaware's not going to have that information available to the public. So that's a nice thing, right? Now, so what's another big privacy and protection and utility is personal creditors, right? So if you are ever sued or there's a creditor trying to attach some sort of levy or lien against your assets, a lot of what they do is searching public databases to try to find where you have assets, where you have property, and they try to seize those assets, right? So if you have an anonymous LLC, then it makes it much more difficult for third parties to figure out where are your assets, where are your financial interests, right? So, long story short, just to close it out here, not everything is done for purely tax reasons, tax avoidance, tax evasion, right? So you can use a Delaware LLC. Perhaps it's not going to save you taxes or provide more privacy with respect to the federal government, to the IRS, but at least at a state level, it provides more privacy in kind of the general public sphere, provides greater asset protection for creditors, right? LLCs, particularly single member LLCs, there's charging order protection legislation in place, which provides a little more asset protection than some of the other states that have single member LLCs. So again, this is not a purely tax discussion or tax issue, right? Going offshore or using an LLC in a state such as Delaware, Wyoming, Nevada, maybe not a lot of privacy with respect to the IRS, but the general public, banks, creditors, all those other kind of parties where you might not want to disclose or have publicly available your holdings. So I hope that made sense and helped clarify some questions. Again, I mean the takeaway from this video is definitely there's still a lot of utility with using anonymous LLCs in some of these states, even though they don't necessarily provide a lot of tax benefits or privacy protection with respect to the federal government itself. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.